Excellencies, ambassadors of the EU member states, officials from Government of India, CEOs from private sector organizations, and members of media. It is our proud privilege to welcome President of European Commission, Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, to the International Solar Alliance headquarters. We are equally grateful to the President of International Solar Alliance Assembly, Minister of Power and New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, His Excellency Mr. Rajkumar Singh, for joining us this day. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a landmark event today for the development of solar energy around the world. I welcome you all to ISA headquarters on this very special occasion. Without taking any time further, I would like to invite Director General International Solar Alliance, Dr. Ajay Mathur, to present the opening remarks, please.
Madam, it's such a pleasure to welcome you. It's really an honor for us. I am delighted that you have found time in your schedule to grace this occasion. I also express my gratitude to the President of the ISA Assembly and the Minister for Energy, the Indian Minister for Energy, Mr. R.K. Singh, to be here with us. I'm also delighted that the Secretary of the New and Renewable Energy Ministry, the European Ambassador, and ambassadors of the member states, the European member states, who are members of the ISA, have also come here today. I thank all of you for being with us on a Sunday. Ma'am, in the past few years, we have seen a huge growth in the solar industry. In the past 10 years, the amount of money that has gone into the sector has gone up from something like less than approximately 50 billion to more than 200 billion. This reflects the changing solar energy panorama, and consequently, because of commitments, we are seeing greater investments occur. At the ISA, we are striving to accelerate solar power uptake in every corner of the world, with a special emphasis on sunshine-rich, the least developed countries and the small island developing countries, and mobilizing $1 trillion worth of funding for solar investments in these countries. Ma'am, the ISA resonates with the European Commission's spirit of no person and no place left behind. Our efforts under our 3 pillars of programmatic support, capacity building, and analytics and advocacy, and our 9 thematic sectoral programs are guided by a similar principle. We strive to employ solar technology to drive equitable impact across all the 105 member countries who we have with us today. We note that in all of our, at least in all of our developing country members, the here and now needs of our member countries are important. And we need to ensure these needs are met as we move along. We also resonate with your ideals of behind the Africa-EU partnership. It bothers us, and the President of the Assembly has often mentioned this, that there are about 600 million people in Africa who don't have access to energy. And yet, last year, just 4.7% of the solar investments went into Africa. We need to work together to ensure that we maximize the benefits to the African continent in particular, while minimizing environmental threats. We look forward to work with you. We have a joint declaration, and to see how we can enhance our partnership. We are grateful for the 1 million euros of support that the European Commission has provided, and we look forward to the formal request that we have made for a pillar assessment by the European Commission to enable direct support to the International Solar Alliance. We are working on various kinds of things, but Madam, I think where we can work particularly is on issues related to the disposal of the solar panels and of the batteries which have lived out their lives. That, together with enabling generation across the world, I think would be necessary for us to ensure that solar reaches every part of the world. We will work with you to making solar energy affordable, accessible, and equitable, and look forward to strengthening this cooperation that we have with the European Commission, and we wish to make it stronger. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mathur. May I now request Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, Mr. Indu Shekhar Chaturvedi, to present his remarks, please.
Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, Honorable Mr. R.K. Singh, President of ISA General Assembly and Minister for Power and Renewable Energy, Government of India, Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General of ISA, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is a short function, so I'll be very brief in my remarks. First, let me just make 4 quick points. 1, it makes us happy that the President of the European Commission is amidst us today. ISA was set up with lofty ambition on the initiative of India and France, and it requires solid commitment from ISA members to achieve this high ambition. And I think this visit of the President of the European Commission to ISA headquarters is an indication of the collective commitment of EU member states to ISA and its cause. 2, the EU is a valued partner both for India and ISA. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, which I represent, is seeing overwhelming commitment and energy toward the green energy transition in several of the EU member states. And there is also growing interest in partnerships with India in the area of renewable energy. I think this is an extremely positive sign, as there is much we can learn from each other. I believe there is similarly a progressive strengthening of EU-ISA partnership, which has immense potential for benefiting both sides. 3, India remains steadfast in supporting the ISA. We have worked to strengthen ISA ever since its inception and will continue doing so. That said, I think it's also important to highlight that strengthening the ISA is a shared responsibility of all its members, individually as well as collectively. And 4th and last, ISA today is at a stage where with a little support from its members, it can take rapid strides toward fulfilling its charter. This would, of course, require continued commitment and hard work, but the initial foundation has been laid, and I commend both the present Director General, Dr. Ajay Mathur, and the first Director General, Dr. Upen Tripathi, for their leadership in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chaturvedi. I now request President of the ISA Assembly, Minister of Power and New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, His Excellency Mr. Rajkumar Singh, to please present his remarks.
Excellency, the President of the European Commission, the members of our delegation, ambassadors, the Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Mr. Indu Shekhar Chaturvedi, the Director General, Mr. Ajay Mathur, members of the industry, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to welcome you, Excellency, here. And we believe that your visit is an indication of the concern which the European Commission has with reference to our climate, with reference to energy transition, and with reference to the need to providing access to access to energy for millions of people worldwide. That is how I will see it. Excellency, the problem confronting us, confronting the globe, is not something which can be solved by one country alone. And it is not a problem which will go away if one country goes green entirely, or if one country gets to net zero, or even if even if 10 countries or 20 countries get to net zero. The problem will not go away because it is one world and it is interconnected. It's just like COVID. You can't have country-wide solutions. You have to have a worldwide solution. You have to have an international solution because, I mean, emissions knows no boundaries, it goes around the world. Therefore, we have to tackle emissions worldwide. And we believe that the major part of tackling emissions, I mean, that's the philosophy which we have followed as a country. Now, as a country, we are committed. We are committed despite the fact that our per capita emissions are 1/3 of the world average. Despite that, for us, environment is important. For us, it is essential to leave behind a healthier planet for the following generations. Now, so we have been working at it, and we can share the experiences which we have gone through. I mean, and we have been working at it, I think, faster than almost any other country in the world. We have added 163 gigawatts, that's 163,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity, I mean non-fossil fuel capacity, which is about 41%, 42% of our generation capacity. Now, this is a target which we had set for ourselves to be achieved by 2030. We've achieved it by November 2021. That's the pace of change which we have set. We have not stopped. I mean, we have upped our ambition. In Glasgow, we decided that we'll increase our installed capacity of non-fossil fuels sources of electricity to 500 gigawatts, which is about 500,000 megawatts. Now, we've also decided that we'll reduce our emissions intensity by 45% by 2030. Now, we had pledged in Paris that we'll reduce our emissions intensity by 33%. We've already neared that. We are already near about 30 odd. That's our estimation. So we'll cross that again much before 2030. That's why we upped our ambition. In fact, we are the only country, only major economy whose actions are consistent with a sub-2 degree rise in global temperature. And all this despite the fact that our per capita emissions are, as I said, 1/3 of the world average. But in this journey, we have had some experiences, and I would like to share those experiences and what lessons we believe that holds for energy transition around the world. Now, we talk about net zero, and we talk about energy transition, but the problems which are inherent in net zero and energy transition need to be taken note of and need to be addressed. One, of course, is storage. Now, the problem with storage is you can't replace fossil fuels unless you have round-the-clock renewable energy. And you can't have round-the-clock renewable energy excellency unless you have storage. Now, there are two predominant forms of storage. One, of course, is pumped hydro. So that is something which we are exploiting, but that is limited by location, etc. The volumes are large, and economically it works out cheaper than the battery storage, but it is not mobile, and it is stationary, and it is limited by the geology or the geography, etc. The other, of course, is battery storage. Now, the present cost of battery storage is about $6 per unit. Now, that's expensive. That's expensive when you consider that the price of solar today is about $3. In fact, less than $3. So if you add storage of about $6, the price of electricity goes up to about $9, which is difficult for poor people to afford. So we have to make storage affordable. Now, that requires volumes. That requires investment in volumes. That requires investments in manufacturing. Unfortunately, not much has been done in that. Today, the largest storage which exists around the world is just about 400 megawatt hours. That's the largest which exists. Now, we have come out with a bid for 1,000 megawatt hours. So this by far the largest in the world. And we propose to come out with a bid for 2,000 megawatt hours. Now, what needs to be done is for other developed countries also to start adding scale. Because if all of us start adding scale, then the price will come down. But here, let us just mark this as a challenge for energy transition. Now, why I'm coming to this is because that's our mission in the International Solar Alliance. Our mission in the International Solar Alliance is number one, to provide electricity, access to electricity to the millions of the deprived people around the world, and do it in a way that does not harm the environment. That is by using solar power, which we believe is cheap, is plentiful, it is available everywhere. It's even available in Ladakh. In fact, our northernmost region has the most solar insolation. And we believe that that is something which can actually sort out the problem which our planet is facing. Now, so one problem which we are facing it, but we have the money. Our country doesn't need any support, so we are adding storage. But when we are talking about round-the-clock renewable energy in Africa and countries like that, they will need support. They will need support for storage, because storage is not going to be affordable by them. We find that we have to give VGF when we are adding, the storage. Otherwise, the price of electricity will go high. That VGF, we can afford, but the poorer countries, I think they'll not be able to afford that. So we have to worry about that. The other thing which we have to worry about is about, and that is again something that is an advantage which we had. As I said, we have added about our capacity, non-fossil fuel capacity is 163,000 megawatts, out of which if you leave out nuclear, which is about 6,000, 7,000 megawatts. So the non-nuclear renewable energy is about 157,000 megawatts. So that capacity, out of that capacity, our solar and wind energy, etc., would be around 110,000 megawatts would be solar and wind if you leave out hydro. Now that capacity we have not had to invest money in, because we hold bids and people come and invest. But for that to happen, so we haven't had to put out any money for that, and the investments are coming. Even during COVID, even in 2021, the investments, the FDI, foreign direct investment, in our renewable energy capacity was $11 billion, even during COVID. So we are still adding capacity, renewable energy capacity. But that won't happen in Africa. Investment will not come. So that is again something which we have to think about. Now, why it won't happen in Africa is because people need, investors need security. This is something, adding renewable energy or adding renewable energy capacity is something which can be done, which companies will come and invest in all sectors. In generation, private sector people will come and invest. That's what's happening here. That's how we've added that capacity. Private sector investors come and invest in transmission. Now that is what is happening here. We added, we've connected our whole subcontinent-sized country into one grid running on one frequency. It's the largest single unified grid running on one frequency in the world. So now we can transfer about 112,000 megawatts from one corner of the country to another at a single frequency. But now a large part of it was done by the private sector. We hold bids, they come and invest, they set it up, and they get tariff. But that won't happen in Africa. So there. Then similarly, distribution. Distribution is again something which the private companies do and can do. So that can also happen in Africa. But then again, all this points to the need for a guarantee fund, a credit guarantee fund. Number one, there has to be a credit mechanism. Now, we heard a lot of talk about, money being put aside in green funds for $100 billion, etc. Nothing of it is materializing. Now, if it doesn't materialize, the world will go on. It will go on till so long as we live, and maybe for the next generation, the generation thereafter that. But after that, and it's not going to get solved just by talking. We need to put aside a credit guarantee fund, and we need to put aside mechanisms for providing financing at low cost to companies which go and invest in Africa. Now, that is a challenge before us. What we are doing in the International Solar Alliance is that we are sharing our experiences with the countries and helping them to design systems which will make generation commercially viable, which will make transmission commercially viable, how to structure it, which will make distribution commercially viable. All that will happen. But it only if we provide a credit guarantee fund. So that is one of the, I think, major requirements. And I believe that all of us have a mission or need to think ourselves responsible for setting up these is the fear in the minds of the people. Now that fear has to be fixed. So the credit guarantee fund, and therefore, and also we have to, I think in terms of a bank. It can be called a renewable energy bank or something like that. For Africa. Because that I believe, where the challenge is. That is, I believe, where the challenge for energy transition and therefore for climate action is. And it's going, Africa is going to grow. It will grow. The emissions will grow. And unless and until we start putting in place mechanisms to make sure that that growth is a green growth, we'll have a huge continent size, mass, which will be, whose emissions will keep increasing. Therefore, thereafter it won't matter whether some country goes to net zero and some in 2035 or some country goes to net zero in 2050. Now, another thing about so this is one part of it. The second thing, of course, is the hydrogen. Now, green hydrogen is again something we are investing in. We have come out. Our Prime Minister has announced a green hydrogen mission that has huge potential, huge promise. The costs again is something which will have to be addressed before the developing countries can access it. And that is the cost of electrolyzer. Water, they have plenty, the cost of electrolyzer. Now, the cost of electrolyzer will also come down again if we add volumes. That again is something which we are going to do as a country. We can afford to do it. Our market is huge. Therefore, when we say that, we want so many thousand megawatts of electrolyzer capacity, people will come and set it up here. We'll add volumes, but it won't happen in Africa. So that was one of the reasons why we set up this alliance, the International Solar Alliance, so that all the countries come together and solve each other's problems in order to provide access. We've done that. We've connected 28 million homes. Ensuring universal access. But it is possible, and I think it is easier with renewable energy, it's easier with solar. It is easier with solar because solar enables distributed generation. So it is easier with solar. And we would expect the developed world, who seem to be now very committed, I say seem to be, very advisedly, and I'm known to be a blunt person, so I'll remain what I am. So the developed world seems to be committed to energy transition and to reducing emissions. But if that commitment is actually going to be real, then these are the things which need to be addressed. And we expect the European Commission to be a large part of it. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It is our privilege to now invite Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of European Commission, to address the gathering, please.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, Mr. President and dear Minister, ambassadors, distinguished CEOs. Thank you very much for welcoming me here and for organizing this roundtable. And I'm very pleased to visit the headquarters here of the International Solar Alliance. This is not only because the International Solar Alliance is one of India's flagship initiatives to fight climate change, as we just heard, but also because the business case of what you're doing has never been better than today. And those who embarked in that topic 20, 25, 30 years ago would not have thought how dominant this business case right now is. And therefore, India and the European Union are closely aligned in the fight against climate change and, of course, have understood how precious solar energy is. Both India and the European Union have embarked on their way to net zero. Europe wants to be climate neutral by 2050 and India by 2070. But in addition, India has committed to cover half of its energy demand from renewable sources already by 2030. This is amazingly good news. This is very ambitious. Congratulations, but it's the right way to go. In Europe, we've set ourselves similar goals, so we know how difficult it is to get there, but you have to be ambitious. In these times where climate change is showing us every day what happens if we don't work against it and if we don't come up with innovative, affordable, and effective solutions. And both India and Europe know that solar energy will play a decisive role in that. So the need for clean energy was never more obvious than today. Indeed, in India, people suffer from extreme weather. I read that the March this year was the hottest March since 122 years. But I can tell you we do have the same experience, of course, in the European Union. Droughts, last summer, deadly floodings, wildfires, hurricanes in regions where we never, ever had these extreme weather phenomena. And you all know this is the beginning of what climate change shows us, of extreme weather conditions that will become more intense if we don't act decisively. And as we know that climate change is man-made, that's bad news. We've done it, but it's also good news. We can fix it if it's man-made. So you know that the Authority in Science of Climate Change, the IPCC, has just said that to prevent the worst effects of climate change, global emissions of CO2 would have to peak within the next 3 years. So at the same time, our demand for energy is drastically rising. You were describing it. And in India, energy use doubled in the last 2 decades, and it will continue to grow. I want to say this is first and foremost good news, because it shows that India's economy is doing well, with all the benefit that it brings to citizens all across the wonderful and vibrant country you have here. So it's good news. But it also, of course, shows the urgency for the transformation to clean and sustainable ways of doing business and using that energy. Because we all know that this energy, this additional energy that you will need, has to be clean, has to be green. We can do it. There are options. You touched on many of them. But it needs an enormous amount of determination on the political part, of investment on the public and on the private side. So we have to step up our efforts in the energy transformation, and initiatives like the International Solar Alliance are key to this. There's a second reason why the switch to homegrown clean energies is so important in these days. And of course, I'm thinking about the war that Russia has unleashed against Ukraine. For us Europeans, it is a stark reminder that our dependency on Russian fossil fuels is not sustainable. Because how can you do business with someone who openly threatens Europe and wages war against one of your closest neighbors? So our transition to homegrown, renewable energy is not only good for the environment, but it also becomes a strategic investment in security. Energy policy is also security policy, because every kilowatt hour of electricity we generate from solar, wind, hydropower, or biomass reduces our dependency on fossil fuels in general. So this is why the European Commission will present next month a new solar strategy of the European Union as part of Repower EU. We can discuss it later on in the roundtable if it is of interest. And here too, India and the European Union are on the same path. Prime Minister Modi has announced that India should be energy independent before it celebrates 100 years of its independence as a country. This would be in 2047. So it's in our common interest that this independence of fossil fuel that comes from abroad is a transformation into renewable and clean energy. As you know, the European Commission has always been and will always be a strong supporter of the International Solar Alliance since it was created at the COP21 in Paris in 2015. And I commend the work that the Alliance is doing to develop new technologies. This is amazing what you're doing. You're scaling up solar applications for agriculture, extremely needed. You are accelerating the production of green hydrogen with solar energy. You spoke about it, and we can go in depth in our own table. You're capturing the infinite energy of the sun and making it to all available and affordable. There will not be a green transition if it is not a just transition, if we are not able to leave nobody behind, but to take everybody along. So what you're doing is innovation put at the service of people. And I'm really interested to hear from you, from business, from you who are active in the solar energy sector, about your experiences, but also, of course, about your vision. The opportunities, the difficulties, let's talk about it. The EU-India Clean Energy and Climate Partnership was adopted in 2016. As you know, we discuss a large variety of important issues there, be it the smart grids or storage, the clean energy financing, our cooperation on green hydrogen, a big topic for Europe. But my visit also shows me, and all the discussions that we have, that there is so much untapped potential. So we can do so much together to improve the situation. We need to step up our cooperation. We can learn from each other how to finance, promote, and deploy solar energy, how to secure global supply chains, big topic since the pandemic, when we learned what it means when all of a sudden global supply chains, because of the pandemic, were interrupted with all the consequences. And the material, of course, needed for solar panels. How to identify the best areas to place those panels, fields, land, or rooftops, etc., etc. Together, we can indeed increase the economies of scale and scope. Dear Minister, you raised the topic. The economy of scales and scopes in tapping the power of the sun. We should do this through the International Solar Alliance. And there's a second point that we should have a look at, and this is mission innovation. Mission innovation is a global initiative of 22 countries and the European Union. Together, they represent more than 90% of global government investment in clean energy research and innovation. With mission innovation, we want to accelerate the innovation in clean energy everywhere on our planet. And India is a key contributor to this common effort. The ministerial in India will be next year. It will be an important milestone because mission innovation is the place where our cooperation with India and other partners is moving the frontier for clean energy. So as I've spoken about the untapped potential, here's the place to really draw on it and to develop the common projects that will forge the path forward to the future. I want to raise a last topic because you rightly so mentioned the potential of the African continent. And indeed, there are massive investment needs that we discovered also after or during the pandemic. Not only in the European Union, not only in India, but also around the globe in the developing countries. And therefore, the European Union has developed Global Gateway, a 300 billion heavy investment initiative where the focus lies on green initiatives. Of course, there's second focus on technology, the digitalization, and the third one on resilience, but the main focus is on the Green Deal. And here 150 billion are tailored for Africa to indeed do exactly what you said. They have an abundance of natural resources for green energy, but they need the investment, and it's in our common interest, not only to develop, but also to store or to transport these clean energies. So also here to work intensively together, to understand the signs of time and to take this potential that is out there and really to do something about it, what is critical for our fight against climate change. That is the task of today. So there's much we can achieve together, boost our economies. For us, the European Green Deal is our new growth strategy, because we know if there's a future for the economy, it's going to be a circular economy. If there's a future for energy, and we need energy, it has to be clean energy. If there's a future for a way to produce and to consume, we have to change it into the patterns of a green transformation, but this is our new green and growth model that we believe in. The International Solar Alliance is emblematic of the kind of partnership we need to make this change happen, because we all have our place under the sun, and we will do whatever it takes to keep this planet livable. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.